Well, it's great to have you join us in another edition of the only weekend business program on Channels Television, Capital Market Live. Here, I'm Ladi Williams. Well, let's begin the show with a quick review of major global stock markets performance at the end of the week. Now, we see U.S. stocks retreated on Friday, closing out a turbulent week as artificial intelligence NVIDIA stock ended the day lower by more than 5% in its worst session since late May. At the close of yesterday's session, both the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq Composite swung into negative territory, down 0.65% and 1.16% after rising to a new all-time highs earlier in the session. At the same time, the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped by 0.18%, but all three major indexes finished the choppy week. That was much lower. Well, in Europe, the markets closed mixed on Friday with investors digesting the European Central Bank's updated inflation forecast and the new U.S. jobs data. The UK's FTSE 100 index lost about 0.43%. Germany's DAX was down 0.16%, while France's CAC index closed today up 0.15%. Meanwhile, it was a positive close across the Asia-Pacific region as Asia-Pacific markets rose after comments from U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell hinted that interest rate cuts may not be too distant if inflation signals support policy easing. Japan's Nikkei 225 ended the day up 0.23%, while Shanghai Composite Index gained 0.35%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index that advanced by 0.76%. So that was a picture right there in Asia. And now let's go to the domestic market now. At trading activities at the NASD OTC exchange ended in red zone for the week as the market's key index fell by more than 5%, while its overall value dropped by 80 billion naira due to profit-taking by investors. The losses were attributed to price declines in securities such as Resourcery, which fell by 2.44%. UBN Property, Arido Holdings also dropped, and these offset the gains from Afriland Properties, WAMCO, Central Securities Clearance System, and Geofluids. At the end of the trading week, the total volume of securities traded on the OTC exchange dropped by 151%. Value traded was down 49.22%, while the number of deals carried out from 12 securities dipped by more than about 33%. And for the domestic market, it ended the first trading week of March strongly positive with 2.61 and a 6.03% increase on the all-share index and the overall value of the market. This came largely due to gains from bellwether stocks such as MTN Nigeria, Boa Cement, FBN Holdings, and newly listed company Transcorp Power, which drove the NGX year-to-date performance higher to 35.5%. However, performance on the sectoral indexes table was mostly positive as industrial goods recorded a loan gain of 1.59%. So it was mostly negative there, with oil and gas unchanged. Transcorp Power was top out of 22 gainers, with more than 46% gain on its share price. And Guinness led 55 other losers with a 17.55% loss, while the indigenous conglomerate Transco, its power subsidiary, as well as UBA, were the major contributors to a total of 2.15 billion equities traded this week. All right, let's get a sense of how the markets are going to close for next week, what to expect, and the major happenings in the capital market this week. Joining us for the conversation now is Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO Finance with Mukhtar. Join us right here in the studio. Great to have you.
Always a pleasure, Ladi.
Happy weekend.
Yes.
And not a bad one
at all.
By what we saw in the markets this week, because we've had about 2 back-to-back losses, or about 3 weeks in total.
In total.
So we've snapped that. For now. But how are you seeing, the markets, starting off March?
Well, I could see from your report, you saw those that really made the market ended in the negative for the past 2 to 3 weeks were the ones that actually brought back the market to its positive territory again. You saw MTN Nigeria. Also, you remember those losses that came from MTN Nigeria, 740 billion due to FX. You saw that also in Dangote sugar also. We saw that losses also comes also in NASCOM, National Salt. We saw that losses in Nestle. You know, these losses were very
humongous. Losses were everywhere.
They were everywhere.
So
the FX losses. So the market had a slowdown, but I'm sure the investors, designing investors, were looking for an opportunity to get back to those stocks when they came to their all-time, almost 52 weeks lower, especially MTN, went lower to about 185 Naira at the point that was like 3 days ago. And then the gradual recovery started, and it closed the week stronger on high, very big beat at gaining almost 30% after losing that number, closing at 221 Naira. So we saw that also with Dangote and the National Salt. So it was same of saying UBA, FBN Holding. People keep asking what's driving FBN Holding. I mean, I wish I knew what's driving that stock. I think the power play is still there in terms of fundamentals. So that's why when you look at that numbers from FBN and FBN Holding, then you look at other banking stocks like Access and like UBA, then you begin to say, look, there seems to be more value in that. And you could see that also move in terms of volume. A lot of investors shift towards UBA and Access Bank. Some of them are crossing over from FBN Holding because they made so much profit and they don't think it has the ability to sustain that run.
And looking at the banking counter, you know, with all the sell-offs we saw in the previous weeks, we saw the banking counter was always, you know, hammered. And I'm wondering, is the sell-off over, you know, for that banking counter?
I think you must go back. First of all, we need to see where they were before coming down this way. A stock like UBA was at all-time high, 33 Naira. Today is doing 22 Naira, 23 Naira. Then you look at even GTCO was at a high of 47 Naira. Today is in 41 Naira. Access was at 27 Naira, 27, 28. Is doing 20 Naira 80 cover. So when you look at that for Access, immediately the news came about the death of the founding CEO and the holding company CEO. We saw a little bit in investors' apprehension about the future of it, and so there was a withdrawal, and you saw those numbers come down. So when you look at that now, what would have been the trigger that would have sustained the rally? Would have been the results. So those results hadn't come in yet. And when the results take this long, even if they've come out to say, look, we've declared dividend, we're waiting for the regulators, the CBN, to give us the final approval. So what will really help the banking sector not to go to those buyouts again is when those results comes in. Hopefully those results should be positive. It will go by first, second, and third quarter. Hopefully they've said they're declaring dividend, and the Nigerian investors normally.
But do you think we might get some kind of surprises from when we see the results coming from the banking counter?
Maybe if you asked me this half year, I would have said, okay, full year, we want a lot of surprises that will come from the banking, but we have a new regulator, we have a new chef in town. They seem to do a lot of things differently. The cash reserve ratio have been high, so then they were forced to make sure that they liquidate some of their FX assets. And they were made to understand that those assets should not be used for operational or paying shareholders. So, but when you look at half year, and you look at those numbers that came in half year, you would have been so impressed because most of them paid one of the highest interim dividend in half year. So I'm like GTCO normally should pay 30, paid 50. Zenith normally should pay 30, paid 50. Even UBA surprised investors also by paying 50. It was only Access that still paid 30. So when you look at that towards the year end, you would have been excited that, okay, we could have a bumper, but with the new regulation, with a lot of things that CBN is trying to do, we're trying to balance up, looking at 1 trillion capital base, all that.
CBN has been really, really busy.
Somebody told me that CBN, they become the circular bank of Nigeria. So we don't know. This week, maybe Monday, we'll get on that circular. Tuesday.
Yeah.
At the point we're getting circulars,
the circulars just keep coming.
We just keep coming. At the point we're getting Saturday, even Sunday, circular comes in to deal with Monday.
Maybe we might get one today. Who knows? Well, let's look at the Transco Power now. You know, the latest listing, the first one, you know, for 2024, and definitely, I know this is going to bring a huge impact, you know, on the NGX. Paint a picture of what you've seen so far.
You see, if you look at the NGS itself, you've not seen those powerhouses being listed. When you talk about key sectors, if you look at the oil and gas sector, only Seplat seems to list all its powerhouses in there. Most of them are the marketing arm of the companies, and those are the key drivers of the Nigerian economy. So they are not really playing the oil sector directly. Also, you look at the telecom sector, you realize that MTM, Airtel. Those the other ones are not there also. Then you look at the power sector. You look at Geregu came in there, changed the dynamics. And then I think Transcorp's Tony Olumide looked at it and said, look, that means Transcorp power under Transcorp holding was not giving fair value. So he decided to unboggle it and then get it back there. And you could see the numbers. Now, the movement is not attributed to maybe the numbers that have come out from Transcorp power. But I think it's just attributed to the fact that they think a lot of future in the power sector going forward, especially in the Nigerian power sector. They think there's a lot of future there. And again, some investors are saying, look, we can't get Geregu again. Why couldn't we just keep Geregu selling for 1,000 Naira? Transcorp should be selling close to that or even more than that if you look at the numbers via what they presented before under Transcorp PLC. I think those are what the investors are looking at. But again, investors need to be cautious because, again, the power sector is a highly capitalized sector. They'll need a lot of funds in terms of expansion. It still looks the depth of the power sector, and that's why you have Transcorp power now listing on. So you won't be surprised if they'll come in for an initial public offer, for a right issue. Whatever.
That sector needs a lot of funding.
That sector needs a lot of funding, and the big banks are not able to fund it so much, and they will also need other investors to come in there. And you must know that even the Transcorp PLC shareholders should be excited about this because they also own 55% of whatever profit Transcorp power will make. So, but again, people were thinking they will unboggle it the way they did UBA when you had a UBA share, you had a United Capital, you have a Prudential, you have an Afri Properties. But this time, I think the management of the same management that handled that think differently and say, you know what, we just give them the profit in terms of the percentage. We put it back into the shareholders from Transcorp, then we divide it and pay it as dividend to their investors, which somehow looks good. But I think most of the investors would have preferred to have the power share than so. But again, I think it's going to be a game changer. That sector is really going to be the sector that is going to drive the Nigerian economy in the near term and in the future. So we're excited about that. So we expect more listing. And like I say, I expect the discos to be doing that too, because they also need a lot of capital to make sure that we have improved power.
Yeah, the discos have a lot of issues, at this time, and we've seen they've not been able to even let go of a lot of electricity that they had. In there.
Because they have to do with the infrastructure. Yeah, they don't have the infrastructure, so they need a lot of change of the transformers. They need to go back. Maybe some of them we need to do a lot of things, but.
At the end of the day, it still boils down to funding.
And then there with the FX rate also is affecting them. The National Electricity Regulatory Commission said you cannot increase rate. All those also are stiffing them. So they may need a lot of funding. And we're expecting
very tough industry.
Very tough industry. That's why I'm saying investors should need to be cautious, because if you think that Transcorp Power will begin to pay those big dividends, will begin to bring in those numbers, they are still involved in a lot of investments.
So we have to be very, very patient. Your capital should be patient.
Yes, your capital should be patient. Like you say, like we always say, you say that the capital market is where you take money from the impatient and give it to the patient. So
right. I'm talking about the capital market at this point. I know that Transcorp Power has always been on full bid. I've been monitoring it. I'm wondering if retail investors were able to get their hands on some of those shares.
Laddie, you shouldn't be surprised about that. That's a trend.
Right.
Remember Mikio?
Same thing. Always full bid. Full bid. So because, like I said, the number of investors that are having it at the moment is introduction by right. It's not like the whales are, having their share.
Even when we don't want to go into those details. I think somebody like Ambrose always like going into those details, gives you the number. Look, they had 1 point. They're supposed to list at a particular amount of shares. They won't list those numbers. They come on, list in more, and then a lot of people want to buy into it. Right. And I'm thinking people are just wanting to buy into it because a lot of people just felt that they missed out in Geregu. So they are just this is a chance to eat of the. Anyway,
I'll still keep monitoring. How much shares are available into next week. But definitely the CBN has been very, very busy, and we're going to continue the conversation in a moment to break down the recent moves we've seen and the expected impact, for the economy. That's in a moment. We're still discussing capital market right here. Do stay with us. We're back in a moment. Welcome back. Well, in celebration of International Women's Day, iInvest, a subsidiary of Parthian Partners, took a bold step towards women's financial empowerment with a Violet for Her Women's Day event, which seeks to equip women with the knowledge and tools they need to thrive financially. The keynote speaker, Mrs. Mary Akpobome, a leading figure in Nigeria's financial industry, encourages women to be more open to calculate financial risk. On her part, the Chief Operating Officer at iInvest believes women have been historically overlooked and excluded. Take a listen.
I think that as women, I realize that we are very risk averse and we need to begin to take considerable risks. Okay? But you can only do that when you have an understanding of the financials, of the numbers, of the risk that you are taking. That understanding as well will enable you see a business opportunity in front of you or create one. But if you don't have it, then opportunities are going to be in front of you and they're just going to fly by because you don't know what to do. You don't know what to do with those opportunities.
Women have historically been overlooked and excluded. And for us at iInvest, celebrating a woman is all-rounded. And when we think about women empowerment, we think about it's all-encompassing, and that includes the finances. A woman who's empowered can make a significant impact on society, on her family, and the nation at large.
All right, let's head back to the conversation now. I still have with me Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO, Finance with Mukhtar. And yeah, we've been celebrating women, this week.
Yeah, that's a good one, International Women's Day.
Yeah, exactly. And, looking at, I'm sure women have a particular way they trade, like they were saying women are more risk averse at this time. But I feel like I know some women that take huge risks, big risks.
The thing is that there's not so much women participation in the capital market, especially the equity space. And I think that's one space that, if you talk about high risks, that's the space to be. There's not a lot of women playing that space, and I think they need to do a lot in that. In terms of the financial sector, like the banking sector, you could say there are a lot of women. The CEO of Fidelity Bank is a lady. Yeah. So the chairman.
And she didn't get there by chance.
She didn't get there by chance. Right. Access Holding, also the chairman is out there holding. Is a lady, and also the interim CEO of Access Holding itself. She's a woman too. So yeah. After the death of Wigwe, so they are there in the financial space.
Kudos to the women. All right, so we're talking about the CBN, earlier, and if we look at the recent data, coming out from most of the government treasury we've seen sold, like the T-bills and all of that, and we've seen a lot of, appetite, an inflow, in that market. Talking about 75% of participants in that market. We got that data from CBN saying that most of that were foreign investors. Yeah. At this time. So I'm wondering, are the foreign investors, are they coming back at this time?
Well, they are coming back with the hot money. They are entering at a good. I think most of them are excited to come in now because again they are entering at about 1,000, maybe say averagely 1,500, and they know that's not the true value of the currency. They may be exiting lower. So they are not seeing that as an opportunity, but because CBN has already begun to put in measures that make them excited to come, because we say that if you don't have that stability, no investors will come in. Now there seems to be a stability in the range of 1,400 to 1,500, and that could change anytime soon, especially if liquidity is injected into the space.
We need it to change to the downside.
Yes, that's what. Yes, it will change to the downside. But remember, the CBN also have done a lot in terms of saying they want to give liquidity to the Bureau de Change. That has not happened yet. That's my challenge. The CBN seems to say it and then don't match it up immediately with action, because again, they seem to just say something and then it takes them weeks to begin to also see those implementation. Remember when they made those announcements, we saw the movement from the parallel market from a high of about 1,900 to almost 1,300. And then we saw it night as recover gradually. It's now 1,600 in the parallel market. So I think they need to put their house in order when they are giving these policy statements, especially when it comes to finance. If you need the technology, then I think you should deal with the technology first before making the announcement. 24 hours after, we need to see this liquidity. If what they did was what they said what happened, by giving the Bureau de Change about $20,000 and at a rate of 1,300, not to go beyond that bracket of 1%. Today would have seen that market come relatively low. So because that retail end seems to be the main challenge, it's not the official end or the way you have the high capital market, high foreign players playing the autonomous foreign market. That seems not to be the challenge. The challenge is from that little retail end. The guy that wants 1,000, the guy that is traveling needs 4,000 plus PTA. Those are the sectors that have been deprived of funds. Those are the sectors that the demand is high, the supply is low. So they need to nick that in the bulk. And then if they do that, then that's the belief. For foreign investors, they are excited to come with the kind of return you get in the TB, about 22 to 23% with a hiking rate. So definitely they are coming to the treasury bill this time, and they seem to be far away from the equity market for now, because they need to be sure that you have that two-way exchange system. That, for me, is the game changer. And the CBN must know that if you are receiving about $1 billion as inflow, you should also be ready to guarantee outflow when these foreign investors are ready to exit the market. So for me, that would be the game changer.
Right, and definitely talking about, I did see a note from, I think, Goldman Sachs, talking about fair value for the Naira would be around about 1,200, to the dollar. So I'm seeing a lot of bullish sentiment, coming up, for the Naira at this time.
Yeah, even when
is this sustainable?
Yeah, exactly. Then if you look at what the chairman of Transcorp Power, Transcorp Holding, Tony recent interview where he said that he believed that the Naira is grossly undervalued and is beginning to return to its stage. It will be lower in the soonest possible time. That seems also to be one good news. And then Goldman Sachs saying, remember, Goldman Sachs at the beginning of the year was telling us that the Naira could hit almost 2,000. So for them to come back now and say, 1,200. But again, I think why we are not getting those inflow, remember that we are still suspended from the frontal market. For me, by the time we get registered in the frontal market, then we'll have those foreign investors come in the way they want, because that seems to be the... So
we've been listed back there?
We've not been listed back there, because...
Could that come soon, with all this bullish sentiment?
Maybe. Well, I think that's why I say the two-way exchange system could be the game changer. If we're able to maintain that two-way exchange system whereby those investors that come in were easy to exit. Remember, that's the only reason why we're suspended, because investors were not able to repatriate their funds back to their country. So if we do that, that could also be a game changer. The CBN have done a lot in terms of trying to bring a little bit of sanity in the FX market, even if we see it has come with a lot of panicking. For me, I think sometimes it seems to panic so much, come out and trying to...
and it's also coming with a lot of pain now, because...
Yeah, because you look at what I say panic, you look at ordinarily what we have seen in the FX market over the years was always seeing the parallel market trying to close the gap with the official market. But for the first time, we saw the official market in December was about 900, and then immediately they moved it to 1,500 to close the gap in the parallel market.
Right.
For me, I think that was one of the biggest mistakes they made, and they didn't react on time. What we saw from there were reaction. They didn't react. They started coming up with reactions, and they allowed it to that gap to be wide, and so it's not easy to bridge that gap. The last time we were in that kind of situation was sometime in 2016. Was it 2016 now when they came up with the import-export window?
Right. When
the Naira crossed about 500. But then the official was still treating the managed system at 360. So we were able to close that gap because it was not wide. But now the gap is so wide. So it will take a lot of time. I
just hear you talking about that 300 level. I just had a flashback. I really miss those times, when it was just 300 Naira, to the dollar.
Even at that time, we're still complaining.
We're actually complaining. It's just incredible. But, going forward now, we've seen the central bank, raise rate by 400 basis points in the first meeting of 2024. What are you seeing going forward? I'm talking about the rate outlook, that's lending rate. And do investors... Are they even worried at all about rates?
I think if you look at rate hike in the Nigeria capital market as a whole, especially the equity space, you expect that rate hike is going to slow a lot. I saw at the day they made the rate hike, I was watching the news on channels where Bismarck gave an analogy that you see the stock market come down, in the next one to 2 weeks. Then after that, you see it picked up, and that's exactly what's happening. So investors sometimes are worried about rate hike, but they seem to favor the foreign investors because of the exchange rate, and then they have easy fund, cost of funding there is still little bit still cheap, and also inflationary pressure in those places are also very low. So when you're thinking about inflationary pressure, you're looking at about 29%, and then how much do you borrow because of the rate hike now? Borrowing has gone up to almost 35%, depending on which bank and what you are borrowing for.
We see the U.S. Fed almost getting close to their target, their inflation target.
Yeah, so it's not really exciting, especially for small businesses. I keep saying that we need to look for an indigenous way of handling our inflationary pressures.
Right.
Our inflationary pressure is not at the same pressure that is encountered in the United States or in the United Kingdom. Are driven by a lot of things.
Because we've seen all the rate hikes.
Yes, we see
the U.S. and the UK.
You remember we started this with them.
Inflation.
We started it with them 18 months ago. Hike rate. They did it, and then we see them getting to, but rather we are going further and further and further away from it.
Right.
So we need to look at, because our own rate hike is caused by microeconomic inflation, which has to do with policies like exchange rate hike. Then you look at production induced.
And we see food inflation also contributing.
Yes, that was the production-induced inflation because of cost. Energy-induced inflation. Then you have demand and supply also induced inflation, all coming in.
So we need to find.
And now we need to fight it. The worst of it now is the exchange-induced inflation, which the CBN actually said has contributed to 50%. Of the inflationary pressure that we are.
All right, I guess we have to leave it there now. Definitely a new week is coming, upon us, and definitely we hope that the markets are going to stay strong right here. Thank you so much for coming on, Mr. Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO, Finance with Mukhtar. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Ladi. Thank you.
All right, so that's the show today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you again next Saturday. Bye for now.